So this is Algebra 1, Semester 2. It's the third unit called Quadratics. It's the 22nd lesson and the last one in this long unit called Deriving the Quadratic Formula. This is instructions to myself. Do not randomize these questions. Keep them in sequential order as shown below. So these questions on your School G practice will come in order, all right, because this is a derivation of the quadratic formula and it can be a little dicey, especially if you're putting it into multiple choice questions. It says copy the following problems into your composition book on the correct pages according to the table of contents with the notes for these pages on creatormath.com. So to just go back through that really quickly, let's go out of Desmos. Let's go to notes. Okay, I'm going to try to go to notes. All right, here we go. Here's the URL, creatormath.weebly.com. Type it into Google and you should be able to find the website. I hope so. You're going to go to, here's what the home page looks like. That way you know you're on the correct site. Go to Algebra 1. Pass by the vocabulary. This is all vocab to help you with those lessons and with those practices. This is the table of contents you should have copied onto pages 2 through 6 long ago. If not, do it now. Go down to the quadratics unit. Here it is. Here are all the lessons. And we're way down here, deriving the quadratic formula. Find the notes right here, the problem sheet we're working on now, and the video will be linked here. These are the pages that the notes go on in your comp book. And if you go and copy these notes, let's just see what I've got on the board right now. Okay, there it updated. Just go ahead and copy these notes into your comp book, and it's going to help you sort out each and every problem of this assignment. Right? The assignment and practice is designed to help you work through this, and I might even keep this open in case I get lost or want to show you a little bit clearer. I'll pull up these notes and show you. All right? So, first off, what is the quadratic formula? The quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We're going to derive means create in math terms. We're going to create that formula from the base equation, which is the standard form of the quadratic, which is a, x squared plus b, x plus c, and we need it equal to 0 to make sure that it's in equation form. If there were no equal 0 here, then it would be an expression. We need it equal 0 because we're going to use this to find the roots, and we know we put the y value equal to 0 to find the x-intercepts or roots or zeros, right? I hope that makes sense. This is the 22nd lesson, so all of that comes from your background that you've seen for a long time now. I hope it makes sense to you, okay? So we're going to start with this base standard form of the quadratic equation. We're going to go to this first line, and I'm going to go line by line, and I'm going to tell you the answer, then try to show you what's happening. Show you what is happening. So we're going to subtract c from both sides. So let's start with this original one and go minus c from both sides of the equation. Disappears from the left. Remember, there's a center line right through here. So there's an equals. Bring everything down. ax squared plus bx. Now there's no more c, but it does show up over here as a negative c. Okay. The next step in deriving the quadratic equation is to what do they say here? Divide through by a to cancel it from the lead term. So we're going to divide each term by a. What happens? A over a is 1, so it disappears from the lead term of this equation. And now we get, let's rewrite it down a little bit lower. Let's rewrite it here. We now get x squared, because it's a over a is 1. 1 times x squared is x squared. We now get plus b over a x. How do they write it here? Do they write it this way? They write it b over ax. Okay, b over ax. There it is there. I'm going to try to keep the equals all the way lined up, maybe all the way down here. Equals negative c over a. All right, so that's cleaning it up a little, and that's where we are now. Let's go to the last step on this page, which says simplify. All right, that's what we did, and if you look at what we have written here, x squared plus b over ax equals negative c over a. That's where we are now. So I forget how many steps this is, 13 steps or something. We could do this in fewer steps. It's just the way it's written into a multiple choice format that makes it a little bit cumbersome. Let's go over here and continue. We've got now x squared in the front plus b over ax, and we have this equals minus c over a. That's where we left it off on the prior page. Right? So now we have, what is the next step in deriving the quadratic formula? We are going to complete the square of what's left. So we're going to go with this option here. It says take b over a and divide it by 2, which is going to give us b over 2a. We're going to square it and add it to both sides. And if you go back and look at the completing the square method, that's where this comes from. So I'm not going to totally re-explain it, but the basic method is we take b over a and square it. So b right now is this. All right, so can I still see this in the picture? Take b over a and divide it by 2, which puts a 2 down there, and then square it. And this equals b squared over a squared 4, right? Because 2 squared is 4, and the a gets squared. So see everything squared now? And this gets added to both sides of the equation. So we took this part. We're now going to add it to both sides and put it right here. We're going to say plus, is that what I've got right here? Yes. We've got b squared over, and we move the 4 right in front of the a, so 4a squared. That's what we've got right here. That's on the left side of the equals. And here it is on the right, and we squeezed it right in front of this minus c over a, right? So this is going to be b squared here over 4a squared. Because remember, if we do it to one side, we can do it to the other. Whatever you do to one side of an equation, you can do to the other. So this is the correct answer here, and it's telling us to do this on both sides. Again, if you go back and look at the notes that we have for this section, it might help you just to write them out in your comp book and then follow through with this whole rigmarole of answering it on this in this format, right? Which is a little bit, again, cumbersome. So the next step in writing the quadratic equation is we want to combine the right side of this. So we have two fractions. Under one, in the denominator position of one, it's 4a squared. In the other, it's just a. I want to combine these, so I need a common denominator. How do I get a to 4a squared? I multiply this by 4a over 4a. And that, on the right side, now produces, we have the original b squared over 4a squared here. Minus is the sign between it. Now we have 4ac, because it's c times 4a, it's 4ac. And we have 4a times a becomes 4a squared. And we can now add these because we have a common denominator. Let's see how far I am on my steps. So I multiply both sides by this, 4a over 4a. That's your answer here. Then, now both sides have an equation as a common denominator. Okay, so yes, they have a common denominator now. And I've got this here, 4ac, that's this one actually right here. All right. And where do I say to go ahead and add them? Do I say that here? Yes. So let's now add this into this step here. It says take the b squared minus the 4ac. So now we're going to have b squared minus 4ac in the numerator position, and both denominators match. So we're just going to combine them into one, 4a squared on the bottom. Fair enough, and that's what it says right here, 4a squared in the denominator position. This is combined, and we still have the same setup on the left of the equation as we had up here. We have x squared plus b over ax plus b squared over 4a squared. Still on the left. Let's go to the next step, and this says to complete the square on the left. Means if you look back at factoring, or the interesting part of factoring, what we call special factoring of quadratics, we can end up, when we have a square on the tail and we have a square on the front, we can end up with this. x plus b over 2a, and this is going to have been squared on the left. We are now factoring this using the special products, or the special factoring of a special product, where we get b over 2a. And if you think back and you want to go back and say, where does this come from? Do this. Take x plus b over 2a, multiply it by x plus b over 2a. Isn't that what squared means? It means one times the other. And FOIL this. First, outside, inside, last. First is x squared. Outside is bx over 2a. 2a, let me get that right. Inside is plus bx over 2a. Last is plus b squared over 2 times 2 is 4a squared. Exactly what we started with right here. So if we FOIL it and we go back to this one, this is over 2, which is half of each. When you combine them together, you get 1 in the middle here. Right? So I hope that helps with that. It's getting pretty sloppy, and I apologize for that. So we still have b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. All right, and that's what it says right here. That's still the right side. So this answer here is the one we've got for completing the square by factoring the left side. All right, with that, remember, you've always got the notes to back you up. Go back and look at those notes, because that's done in a non-multiple choice setup. So now, what do we have here? We've got the left side of the equation. We've got x plus b over 2a. This is squared on the left, equals b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared on the right. That's what we have now. So what we're going to do now is, the answer is take the square root of both sides. So we're going to take the square root of the left and the square root of the right. When you take the square root of the right, you got to drop in a plus minus, because just like if you square a negative 3, you get 9, and you square a positive 3, you get 9. We don't know if it's positive or negative, so there's actually 2 answers. So we're going to have a positive, negative to show there's a positive one of these and a negative one of these. This square root of a square disappears this. We now are left with this answer here. Let's see, get here. So we're left with just, let's move down to here, get rid of this, say x plus b over 2a is this side here. And this equals a plus minus square root of both of these. Now, let me go ahead and say, because right now, let's go ahead and shrink this down a little bit. We're going to keep the square root over the top and the square root of the bottom separate. Now we can separate them and say, I wish I'd done that a little bit cleaner here. I don't like this. It's getting way too messy. But the square root of the top remains. Okay, let me rewrite it. X plus b over 2a equals plus minus, there's a square root of this one, b squared minus 4ac on the top, and a square root of 4a squared. We can separate them. That's a legal form of adjusting radicals right there. A square root of 4 is a 2, and the square root of a squared is an a. So now this becomes x plus b over 2a equals plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Why? Because square root of 4 is 2, and square root of a squared is a. Okay? So, I think we're up to this step. Here, the square root of the denominator, that takes us, the square root of the denominator is 2a. That takes us right to where we are here. The next step now is to subtract this b over 2a from both sides. So minus b over 2a on the left and minus b over 2a on the right. It disappears from the left. You're left with just x on the left and equals. And this we're going to squeeze in right here. So a minus b over 2a squeezes in front of this, which says plus minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And because these both have a common denominator, we can now rewrite x equals negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over, just use one of these common denominators, 2a. And voila, shoot, I'm almost off the screen. Voila, this is your quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's exactly what we said right in the beginning we would derive. And that is what we have done. Here's where we started, right? We said we're going to do the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So there you go. Voila, you went through the entire thing, and that's how we derive. Derive means to create in math. We came up with the actual formula of how to solve for x and find the roots of a quadratic to find out where it crosses the x-axis, the x-intercepts. All right, so make sure you're in, follow the title closely. This is Algebra 1, Semester 2. This is the third unit on quadratics and the 22nd lesson called Deriving the Quadratic Formula. It's on creatormath.com under the Algebra 1 tab, okay? I hope this helps.